In this video, I'm going to show you how to prepare your stems for mixing and mastering. If you can do it this way, it can make a big difference to how good your track can sound by giving the engineer more versatility and less problems I commonly see. Before we get into this, let's quickly talk about what a stem mix actually is, because a lot of people get this wrong. A stem mix is where you send your track out as separate groups of audio instead of just one full stereo file. So rather than just sending one finished track, you're sending groups of the kick, the bass, the drums, the music, the vocals and the effects, all as separate audio files. This gives a mixing and mastering engineer way more control over balance processing and how everything interacts. So, for example, kick and bass can be rebalanced, drums can be processed differently, music and vocals can be controlled independently. And this is an important bit. This is what allows a track to go from sounding good to sounding like finished record that can compete with the labels you're aiming for. Now, the groups I mentioned are what are the normal stems, but I allow up to 12 stems, so you need to choose what's most important. In this video, I'm going to show you what generally works for getting the best results. The main problems come up are kick and bass relationships, lack of clarity and no punch in the mid-range. So what works is separating sub and mid-bass and exporting the most important musical elements individually, not just as one music bus. This gives much more versatility to get the best possible mix. Also, most producers don't have perfect listening environments. They're working in bedrooms, on headphones and untreated rooms. So even if the music is good, it's very different sometimes, almost impossible to get a perfectly balanced mix that translates properly and actually slams in the club, because what's being heard isn't always the truth. That's where a proper mixing and mastering environment and experience makes a huge difference. And that's also why how you prepare your stems matters so much, because the more flexibility there is, the more the track can be corrected, enhanced and pushed to a professional level. First thing, create a folder and name it like this: the artist name, the track title, the BPM, the bit depth and the sample rate. So for example, Jason Hurd, Underground, 127 BPM, 32-bit, 48K. Keep it clean, keep it clear. Next, put your own export in that folder, your version of the track. I want to hear how you hear it, what you like about it, what direction you're aiming for. Now, if you've got an extended mix and a radio edit on the same timeline in your DAW, just export them as one file if they're the same. Don't overthink it, I'll separate them, it's easier for both of us. Now, let's get into the important bit, the stems. What do we need? Firstly, we need a kick, preferably not in a drum loop. A kick in a drum loop is one of the biggest things that stops a track sounding great. It's always better on its own. And remove any low cuts from it. Bass. Remove low cuts and remove sidechain. I need to hear the real relationship between the kick and the bass. If you have a top bass and a sub bass, bounce them as two separate files. Drums and percussion. Vocals. Effects, that's things like risers, impacts, white noise. And then the music group with all your musical elements together. Now, this is important. For me, if you've got under 5 musical sounds in that group, export them individually as well. This gives me way more flexibility, and this is where great mixes are made. Otherwise, just separate your main lead and give me 2 files. Sends and returns. This is where Ableton becomes a bit of a pain. In most DAWs, you can send your returns back to the group, so everything gets processed together. Ableton doesn't really let you do that properly. But this matters because I want all your effects processed with the group. So if your drum bus is compressed and saturated, I probably want the reverb from the clap going through to that as well. That's what gives a sense of cohesion. Okay, so the problem you have with Ableton is that you can't output your returns back into a group. So if you've got, let's say, a drums bus and you've got a compressor on there and you love how it's moving everything within that group, that reverb that you might have on a clap, for example, sent to the return won't get compressed and moved and glued to that group as if it was on the clap itself. Or in Logic or Cubase, if you'd got that return and sent it back to the group. So what happens in Ableton when you click on include returns and master effects? So that reverb that was on the clap, that's on the return, will get bounced with, let's just say, your drums group, okay? But that reverb will not be going through the processing on the group. Remember that. If you click that button in your export settings, which I'll show you shortly, it will record the reverb, okay, into the selected tracks, but it won't apply the processing. So there's two ways you can go around this, okay? The main way, which is what I'm going to explain to you next, is getting whatever you've used on your returns and just putting them into a rack on the individual items. And then that will be processed on your group bus. The second way, which is problematic, and I never do this because I've always found them to be a bit of a delay, is getting the outputs of your returns and sending them to an audio channel, okay, and recording the audio channel in. Now, the problem you've got with that is you can obviously have just one or put one audio channel in each group. I find, and I've not figured it out, there's a bit of a delay, okay? Something to do with delay compensation. So for me, it's a definite no-go. You have to apply the things into the groups if that's what you're looking for. You might not be looking for that, so just leave the returns. Remember, I will still get those effects in them groups when them groups are exported, but they won't be processed in the same way that the group has processed everything else. The choice is yours. Let me show you how to do that. Okay, so let's say I've got this clap here and it's got to send to the snare verb. I'm going to go to the snare verb. I'm going to get the reverb that's on there, which will be 100%. And I'm going to bring it, copy it to the clap. Okay. Now, this plugin has an EQ, so I can EQ it, and it has a dry wet. So I don't really need to do anything else with this. But what you would do with any plugin, you click on it, you press Command G, you can open it up here, and then you've got your reverb. Okay. Always put it on 100%. And then if you want, go create chain, Command R, dry mix. And then this one, you can blend it like this is the send or the return on the channel. I can drag and put an EQ before it. I could put some saturation on the reverb. I could do anything just like I can do on a send. And now this reverb, when it goes to the all perk group, anything that's on the all perk group, like a compressor or a saturation or distortion, will then be compressed, okay? And treated in the same way as everything else within those drums are, which is what we're trying to achieve 95% of the time. So that's how you create an effects rack without using a return. Now, your master channel. I would remove anything that's just for loudness. Limiters, clippers, or maximizers. Unless they are adding a character you like. If it is, leave it on, but reduce it. Don't let it distort. Remember, compressors and limiters, they can suck the life out of your track. They can make it feel small and bring in the stereo field and compress the kick too much. So it's something I ask people to leave unless they can really hear and understand what those processors are doing. Remember, I'm not saying remove things like adding character that you really like, maybe a tape, maybe Endless Smile. That's not what I'm talking about. That's your artistic preference for that track. But if you just slapped on a limiter, like a lot of people do for loudness, there's a big chance you're possibly, deteriorating the quality of your track and restricting what the master engineer can do for you. Simple, but label everything properly and simple. Kick, bass, drums, effects, lead group, keep it clean. So when you're exporting your track, what you need to do now, in Ableton, you need to highlight the groups that you want. So I'm going to highlight the kick because I have it in a group. The bass, I've only got one bass, so just the bass group. All percussion. And then let's just say I had more leads. What I would do is I would highlight the music group and just lead one. Or in this case, I might just get them all together because I've only got 4, highlight them, okay? I've then got the vocals group and I've got the effects group. And then I'm going to go to Shift Command R. I'm going to go to Render Track, Selected Tracks Only, okay? Include Return and Main Effects on. Remember, when you make sure Include Return and Master Effects is on, if this is off, you're going to lose any automation on your groups or your master, the filters, the volume and effects like Endless Smile, and your track's going to feel flat. Make sure all these are off. Sample rate to the project sample rate. The way you find that out is clicking there and there is a speaker symbol next to the project sample rate that you're working in. So I work in 48K. File type WAV, 32-bit in this instance. Go all the way down and then export. Okay, now what would normally come up here is the name of your project. Remove that and just put a star. Remember, you're gonna have to put that into your folder. So like we've got here with the name Jason Hurd dash underground dash 126 BPM dash 32-bit dash 48K. Now that's just going to help your engineer, okay? I've created that folder there, and then what I'm going to do is this. I'm just going to put a star or anything, okay? Because your DAW is always going to put your project name first and then the track name, but I don't need your project name. And when I drag it into Cubase or Ableton, whatever I'm mastering in, I'm gonna have this big long name and I have to go through it all and delete the name of the track. So this really helps the engineer. And then I press save. What we get then is a well-named folder which helps the engineer set up his project quickly. We've then got all the files and my mix and master. I'll show you why we put the star at the beginning. If I drag this over here, you see there, it says 36 star 6 all perk. I can see straight away it says all perk. But if that said Jason Hurd the Underground, I'm going to struggle to read it. I can't get enough space, and it's the same in most DAWs. And don't forget to label it a group if it's a group, because then I'll know we've got the music group here that I won't need this if I'm using these 4 when I pull them into the project. Finally, send your master engineer the folder via Dropbox, WeTransfer, or whatever you use. For me, send it to info@subtonemusicacademy.com. I'll put a link below. Include any notes you might want to add to tell me what you're struggling with, and most importantly, include reference tracks and the labels you're aiming for, because I will mix differently depending on where you want this track to sit, as people have different sounds. And just to finish, this isn't just about exporting stems. This is about giving me the flexibility to make your track sound like the records you're trying to compete with. The better this is done, the better your final result will be. Most mastering people won't ask you to break down the music group like I've done there, or break down the bass. A stem mix or master is usually kick, bass, music, drums, vocals, effects. Some people have more, some people have less. Personally, I want to get the best out of your mix when you send it to me. And based on me mixing hundreds of clients' tracks, there's a lot of common mistakes that I see. So following what we've done here is really, really going to help me or your mixing and mastering engineer get the most out of your tracks. And again, it's a lot simpler when you're exporting from Cubase or Logic or whatever. Ableton is problematic because we really want those effects in the appropriate group. But I hope this video helps with it. If you're interested in mixing and mastering for electronic music, you can email me on the link below, and go to Subtone and look at all our courses which help new and intermediate electronic music producers getting their music to the level that gets signed. So thanks for watching this video. Please like, share and subscribe.